Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Classic X-Men number 19, cover dated March 1988. What I'm interested in this video is the backup story I, Magneto by Chris Claremont and John Bolton. But worthy of note is this cover, this fantastic cover by Arthur Adams and Terry Austin, which is their version of the cover to issue 113, which is the main reprint inside this issue of Classic X-Men. So we can see there Magneto in his classic costume versus some of the new X-Men and Cyclops. Pretty nice stuff. So let's open this one up to the title and credits page. And so we see here two classic tales of the Uncanny X-Men. Chris Claremont is the writer of I, Magneto. The penciler is John Bolton and inker, and the letterer is Tom Orzechowski, and the colorist is Nell Yomtov. And we see here on this frontispiece page these nice little illustrations of various X-Men by Art Adams and Terry Austin. Pretty cool. So let's go to the main event of this video, which is I, Magneto. And there is a video on the channel already of the backup story of Fire in the Night to Classic X-Men number 12. And in some ways this is a follow-up to that particular story. But really kind of the thrust of this one is to explain how the tragic, noble, basically decent human being that Magneto was in Chris Claremont's handling of his backstory could become the raging, homicidal, totalitarian, fascist maniac of Silver Age X-Men 1963, number 1. So we get the origin of that Magneto in this backup story. So it begins not so long ago in the fullness of their youth. They were the masters of Europe. They sang the Horst Wesel and goose-stepped their arrogant way from the Atlantic to the Caucasus. Old memories, happy days, now they bake in the South American sun and dream of the moment when the Fourth Reich will rise from the ashes of the Third. They were conquerors. They're not used to being the hunted, refugees, prey. So obviously this is some kind of military bastion type fortress, and it's a matter of historical record that many, many Nazis fled to, in particular, Argentina under Juan Perón in 1946. So there's historical fact regarding that, and then of course a lot of fiction developed out of it as well, in terms of stories of Nazis hiding out in South America, making ready to build a Fourth Reich. So Claremont tapping into both history and fiction here in the opening of this story. So there's somebody outside the base, and the sergeant sets off the alarm. And who is it out here? A lone man on the road up to the entrance to the fortress. Well, Stanley presents I, Magneto. And the two Germans dialogue with each other. Who is he, Sergeant? What does he want? Why is he looking at us so? Don't like that smile, too cold by half. Devil take it, orders or no, I'm shooting the swine. At which point the stranger glows and the fortress's walls come tumbling down. So nicely illustrated here by John Bolton. We see that look on Magneto's face, a look of confidence, and he rips his way through the doors of the fortress and levitates over the rubble of the wall. So they recognize their bullets are bouncing off him. They tried to hit him with point blank cannon fire from the tank, but Magneto, of course, equal to that. He says, your weapons are metal, and all metal is but putty in the hands of the master of magnetism. So already by this point, he's styling himself master of magnetism. We see the wreck of the tank and a helicopter here. Again, nicely illustrated by John Bolton, inking himself here. So this is his target. This is who he's after. And as he says here, the gentleman he's looking for. So who is this guy firing from the balcony of his office? Obersturmbannführer Hans Richter, late of the Waffen SS. So the Waffen SS was the military wing of the SS, the German Gestapo, secret police. And that military wing, its members swore oaths of personal loyalty to Hitler. And they were some of the most brutal and violent and also fanatical of the German military troops in the Second World War. So here is Magneto levitating this armored vehicle and basically throwing it at Richter. So then he levitates up to his office and he basically handcuffs him with a piece of metal, and then he goes to Richter's safe and he talks to him in the meantime, when Richter says, "You expect a Prussian officer to receive a fair trial from Jews," because Magneto reveals that he's not there to kill him, but to take him or have him sent to courts in Israel for trial. And so Magneto responds to what Richter says by his response, "Fairer by far, I suspect, than the justice you meted out on the Russian front, where women and children so deadly a threat that you had to slaughter them with such enthusiasm." And so that's a matter of historical record as well, that very often it was like frontline German troops were pushing the Eastern Front forward into Russia, Ukraine, etc., etc. And then some of the last troops to come up the rear were the Waffen SS, and they were particularly on the lookout for ethnic groups and religious groups, obviously Jews, of course, that they wiped out behind the main line of the army. So that's what Magneto is referring to there, and he retorts to Richter. He says, "You hide behind your Junker Code, your so-called soldier's honor, while you pillaged and brutalized the whole of Europe. Honor, by heaven, you don't know the meaning of that." And then he's caught with a flash of pain, indescribable, worse than the bite of the capo's whip in the death camp, the murder of parents and family, the death of a child, the loss of a beloved wife. That's Magda. And we saw all of that outlined in the backup to Classic X-Men number 12. So the headache passes, and Magneto thinks to himself, "Never been so bad. These seizures strike now whenever I use my powers. More extreme my usage, more debilitating the attack. I wonder, am I pushing myself too hard, trying to run before I've learned to crawl, as if I had a choice? I'm the first of a new race, Homo sapiens superior, mutant kind. If we wished, Nazi," he thinks, he doesn't say it to him, "we could be masters of the earth." So here is Magneto contemplating the fact that with his power he could make himself master of the earth, comparable to the Nazi aim and the aim of the Third Reich, but he rejects that. It isn't his aim. And then of course he finds a file in the safe, and he says, as he puts his feet up on Richter's desk, "With the information in your files, I'll be able to smash Odessa, the underground spy and mercenary network run by and for you renegade fugitive Nazis. Once and for all, cause for celebration, eh?" So Odessa, or Project Odessa, was an American codename for a series of either organized or loosely organized escape plans that members of the Nazi Party had to escape from Germany and escape justice of the Allies at Nuremberg. And escape to far-flung places, the Middle East, and of course South America and Argentina. So Magneto continues to think about his own situation as well. "Being the first, there is no one to teach me the use of my talents. I must learn by trial and error and pray my mistakes don't kill me." So Richter sees that he's in agony for all his superhuman abilities. The swine has limits, and that means he can be overwhelmed, beaten, destroyed. And of course, this is a trope of Chris Claremont's, that, you know, the more powerful the character, he will give them some kind of Achilles heel. He will identify some kind of limit to their power, or some way that the use of the power backfires or has a cost. And so there's an element of that going on here, but there's more to it too. So Magneto calls on the phone Control. So this is his, it would appear, CIA handler. And there's also an implication that maybe Magneto is his CIA designated code name. And he says to his handler, "I have a package for you, Hans Richter. I know it's unexpected, so was my finding him. What's the matter? Don't you like surprises?" So obviously Control is not entirely happy with this. "No, I'm fine. I just have a slight headache," he says. And then the scene switches to Rio de Janeiro 2 weeks later. And he's reading in the newspaper about renowned mutant expert lecturing at genetics conference, and it's Charles Xavier. So by this point, Chris Claremont had shown that Professor X and Magneto had met long before, or had known of each other long before X-Men #1, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's X-Men #1. And he showed us that in Uncanny X-Men 161, that Professor X and Magneto were friends as young men. So Magneto reads the newspaper here, the world's foremost authority on human genetic mutation, its potential for good and evil. Still the idealist, my dear friend, he thinks, dreaming of a world where mutants and normal humans can coexist in peace. We hate so easily. I suspect you ask more than humanity is capable of giving. It's been an age since we corresponded. Shame to let those ties slip loose. Perhaps time to re-establish them. He has become a teacher. Perhaps he can help. And of course, the unfinished thought is help him. And that holds out a very interesting possibility. What if Magneto had reached out to Professor X, had contacted him? Would he have become one of the founding members of the X-Men with Professor X? An interesting what if scenario. But then he's interrupted by this woman who is posing as a Brazilian woman, but actually there's a bit of banter between them. It is Isabel, who is his physician and secretary, and maybe more. So Magneto says to her, when she says to him that he's overdressed for the beach, he says that this, I'm afraid, is as uninhibited as I get. And that's interesting. So there's a suggestion, you know, that Magneto is a man who values control. And what is going to happen to him a little later in this story, we shall see. So she apologizes for being late, and he says, "I don't mind, you've always been well worth any wait." So as I said, a little bit of flirtation between these two. And he reveals there that she is his professional physician. And so we'll turn the page and see a little later on in the evening, they're kissing or about to kiss, and he pulls away and says he thought he wanted to, but he can't, because when he holds her, he thinks of his wife Magda. And she says to him, "You said she deserted you," and we saw that in Fire in the Night, the backup to classic X-Men #12. And this is his response, his point of view on all of that now. "I went mad. I used my powers to slay the mob who'd kept me from saving her. Magda, she called me inhuman, monster. I thought that wound had healed, but it's still raw," he says. "I cannot forget the look of absolute horror in her eyes, hear the terror in her voice, an agony that rivaled our child's. What manner of man am I to inspire such reactions in the woman I loved?" he asks as he passes into shadow there. But she hugs him from behind and says that he's a good man, tormenting himself needlessly. But then he gets the headache again. It's worse, but it passes. So Isabel says he should be in hospital. "To what end? All your tests can find neither cause nor cure for my condition." So there's no tumor, nothing like that. So she gives him a bit of a back rub. He's enjoying it, a bit of banter between them. And then she begins to theorize about what might be the cause of his seizures, his headaches. "You manipulate the primal energies of the earth," she says, "the planetary magnetic field through your body. That must have some effect. Your seizures involve the central nervous system. If there's disruption to that bioelectrical network, goodness knows what effect it's having in turn on the structure of your brain." And just at that point, here in silhouette behind her in the darkened room, here comes a silent assassin with a knife. and this is brutal, cuts her throat, and the blood splashes on Magneto, and he's shocked. And so much going on here in terms of Claremont providing a rationale for why Magneto was the way he was in Uncanny X-Men #1, and that in effect he's implying here via Isabel's conjecture that Magneto, with his early uses of his power, was in a sense damaging his own brain and sending himself mad. And maybe this could have been avoided if he had reached Professor X and Professor X had helped him manage his power. He mightn't have gone mad and turned into that evil maniac he was in issue 1 of Uncanny X-Men. So let's see what's going on here. Who is the assassin and what's happening? So it's this thug, and he's praised by, it turns out, Control has come to track Magneto to Brazil. And Magneto's flabbergasted. He doesn't understand what is going on. And Control says to him, that should be obvious. Why couldn't you simply have done what you were told? But no, you had to hot dog it, go herring off on your own. Magneto says that never mattered before, but here we get to it. That was when you were sanctioning their Nazis, the other side's. Richter was one of ours, so a CIA asset. You made some waves with that caper, Magneto. Now they're going to drown you. So Magneto is angered and shocked. Ours, theirs, what the devil are you talking about? They're Nazis, war criminals. And this guy Control, cocksure of himself, says, wake up, my man, and smell the coffee. See the world as it is. The Russians are the enemy, and we'll work with whoever we have to beat them. If accomplishing that means turning to some of old Adolf's boys, them's the breaks. We'll use them the same way we will you muties. So Magneto, betrayed, shouts he trusted him, believed the lies he was told, and swears by Hades you're worse than they could ever be. But he finds his power sent back at him, and Control reveals that the whiz-bang science boys have rigged a way of countering Magneto's powers. You use your power on me or my boys, this reflects it back on you, amplified tenfold. But if that's the way you want to go, suit yourself. Me, I can't stand pain. So Magneto asks, why Isabel? Why didn't you come for me when I was alone? So this guy, and this is the cruelty of it, says, our associates wanted their pound of flesh. So obviously the other Nazis who are working for the CIA wanted their pound of flesh. And of course that's an evocative term going back to Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, where it's Shylock the Jew who wants his pound of flesh of Antonio's. Sorry, pal, you play in the big leagues. It's no better not to have friends. It's better not to have friends, rather. Look on the bright side. At least you'll be rid of these pesky headaches. So they're getting ready to shoot him, execute him in his hotel room. But no, Magneto's defiant. And look at this for a drawing of rage and power. I'll not be killed, he says. Not here, not like this. Not by such as you. And in effect, his use of his powers blows the penthouse of the hotel, and then here he is levitating in the air, looking down at Control. Little man, have you no notion who you're dealing with? I am Homo Superior, the next generation of humanity, heir apparent to this paltry planet. As Cro-Magnon supplanted Neanderthal, so shall we, you. And I have you to thank, Control, for showing me the true path. And he grabs him by the scruff of his throat. No, he says, he accuses him of being insane, and Magneto responds, no, enlightened. At last, for the first time, my eyes are truly open, my destiny clear. And look at this for an expression on his face. You are like children, intellect and power without the maturity to use either responsibly, unfit to rule lives or world, better to be ruled instead by one who shall. Make sure you know and keep your place. It is neither communists nor Nazis you have to fear, Control. It is we who your short-sighted stupidity will make your foes. It is I who shall lead my people to the glory they deserve. I, Ubermensch, I mutant, I Magneto. And he flings him to his death. And then, still levitating, he looks down at the corpse of Isabel. Her hair splayed on the bed, and no doubt her blood too. And more quietly he says, I, Magneto. And the narrative caption comes in, and the dream dies and the nightmare is born. So what a powerful issue. Claremont showing us how his Magneto, this Magneto, a tragic figure, capable of good, how he could be, how he could have become the ranting, homicidal, fascist maniac of Uncanny X-Men #1. And what a story it is. So I do hope that, and also nice here to see John Bolton's back cover. So just pencil and brush ink drawing of Magneto and Isabel. That's nicely done and dated 1987. So I do hope that you have enjoyed this review and commentary on the backup story I, Magneto, to Classic X-Men #19. If you did, please like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.